Alright, first I'm going to talk about some applications for Sup Chi Sao, or the character 10 hand, which is shaped like the Chinese character 10, which is an X. Now, one of the ways that we use it as an emergency defense against a kick. For example, if I'm down, I've been dazed or whatever, and I've gone down, and Gavin goes to kick me in the face, I use Sup Chi Sao to stop that kick. Let me show that slowly now. From position, it would be here, cross, left over right, and then from there you might go into whatever other movement you want it to do. Alright, another application for Sup Chi Sao can be used in single. Instead of using both, you can just use one of them. Now, for example, against the headlock, what I'll do here is lock up Gavin's leg, soften him up with a grab to the meat, stomp the foot, use half of Sup Chi Sao, and then go into a kick to the leg. Alright, next I'm going to talk about an application for Kwan Sao, or rolling arms block. Now, one of the ways that we use Kwan Sao is half of the movement that we do in Sil Lim Tao. So in other words, instead of doing both at the same time, I might leave one down and roll with the other. That'll form what's called Moi Kwan Sao, or outside rolling arms block. So for example, from sticky hands, when Gavin tries to pull a punch against me, here, and again, I use the Kwan Sao motion. Alright, now slowly, what happened was Gavin pulled and hit, and I just used one hand to convert up to Tan Sao, rolling from the inside. Again, when he pulled, I rolled and used that Tan Sao, flipping up from the middle. Now on the third one, what I did was offset the timing. Instead of doing both at once, I did the first one, then the second one to trap him up. So you could see that in the form we practice both at once, but in application you could follow one with the other to stop two punches or to re-trap one that you already stopped. Alright, another application for Kwan Sao is what's called Loi Kwan Sao, or inside rolling arms block. So it'll be a combination of Hyun and Jan, but that also comes from the Kwan Sao motion. Now for example, when we're open and Gavin throws that first punch, I stop it with Jam Sao. Now what happens here is what I wanted to do was open him up and throw the shot. But because as I started to open, I'm facing another punch coming in, I had to use the other side to stop it. Then I could finish him up in a number of ways. So for example, at speed it would look like this. Now slowly what I did was stop the first one, stop the second one while hooking the first one, hook the second one while hitting, hit again, and then finish with the uppercut. Alright, next I'm going to talk about going from Yachi Chun, stretch open, circle close, pull punch, stretch, circle close, that movement. Now I would normally use that as an attack, straight out of the form. If I faced Gavin and I went in to punch but he blocked, then I would convert that to an open, close punch, re-trap and punch. So at speed that looks like this. Now if he blocked that second shot here, then I might pull down there and do the same thing. So slowly that went here, pull punch, re-trap and punch. Alright, another application for the Yachi Chunkin motion, I can use it to what I call include, or push a guy's punch in on the center line. So for example, when we're open, when Gavin throws the jab, I can do what's called include, knock his arm inwards while hitting him. Then again, for the cross, it'd be the same thing, follow up with more punches. So at speed, that's going to look like this. Alright, next I'm going to talk about Tan Sao, or the palm up block. Now one of the ways I use Tan Sao is to block a punch. So when Gavin comes in close and throws the jab, I can use Tan Sao to stop the punch there. You can see that my wrist is bent. That makes it harder for him to slip out. If my hand was straight, he could slip right up and over. But by putting my hand bent like this when he pulls, it gives me a little warning and it tells me something's going to happen. Now I can combine that with a punch in this way. That's what's called Tan Da, or palm up block and punch. Notice that the Tan comes in first before the punch to clear the way. Then of course I can follow up with a number of different attacks. Alright, the next application for Tan Sao could be as a takeover trap. So after I stop the first shot with Pak Sao, for example, I can take over with Tan, then re-trap and hit. So what I did was I stopped the shot, took over the trapping duty while moving in with the punch, and then I just re-trapped. So at speed it's going to look like this. Alright, another application for Tan Sao is as part of what's called Luk Sao, or rolling hands, and Chi Sao, sticky hands. Now you notice that my right hand right now is going down to Tan Sao and back up to Bong. Down to Tan and back up to Bong. I'll talk about Bong Sao and Fuk Sao, the other elements, as they come up in the form. But right now you can see that I have Tan, which is flat. I don't want my hand to be straight because if it is, I cannot feel Gavin's elbow position. If his elbow is out, I wouldn't know it. If it's in, I wouldn't know it. But by putting my hand bent in this way, I can tell if his hand comes out that I can go in. It tells me that the elbow's moving. Now, to roll, you just drill down to tan, up to bong, down to tan, up to bong. Now I switch, and again, now my left hand has got tan, and my other hand is bong. There, and you see Gavin has tan sao on the other side. All right, next I'm going to talk about hyun sao, or circling hand. Now in the form, I do not raise my elbow, and that's because there's no hand contact. You know, I would usually wait until I touch the person's hand before I would raise my elbow and fully commit to the motion. But in application, one of the ways we would use it, for example, if I had done what's called pak down, slap and punch, and Gavin stopped me with his own slap block, that's where I might collapse down and use the hyun sao. You can see 3 fingers are closed to hook his elbow, and the other one's pinched. So then I could just follow up in a number of ways. So at speed, that's going to look like this. All right, now another way to use hyun sao from sticky hands is to use it from the bong position, especially when the opponent is pushing real hard on the high fook sao. When he does, you can reach over, trap the elbow the same way that I did just now. So in other words, what I did here was feeling his hand pushing me over. I collapsed down, trapped onto the elbow, and cleared the way for the shot to come through. Then I finished up the same way as last time. You know, I could have finished up in a number of ways. If I wanted to, after that first one, I could have just went straight into another one from the bottom. Another way I might use it in sticky hands would be from my tan sao to open, and again to re-hook. So what I did there was I just took the tan sao hand, rolled it out, became hyun, hit, became hyun sao again on the other arm as I stepped in. Then you could finish up in a number of other ways. All right, now using a sequence almost directly out of the form, which is tan, hyun sao, and then into the wu sao protective hand. For example, if I had used tan to stop the jab in whatever way, now if that hook was coming, I can circle snap into the wu sao. So if you see again slowly, it was tan, just like it was in the form, circle for power, snapping into the wu sao. This is how Wing Chun slaps a hook, by the way, and I'll talk more about it later. But at speed, that technique's going to look like this. All right, now, next I'm going to talk about hyun sao into wu sao, the protective hand. Now, I showed it against the hook just a second ago, but I'm showing you a couple of other ways to use the wu sao as a block. Now, firstly, I use it sort of to bounce or deflect the punch that's coming in at me. For example, closed. What I did here was just snap that movement out. Throw me a couple of jabs. You can see that it bounces the shot out. Now, I could add a hit to that if I wanted to, so simultaneously as that jab comes, I could add the shot here. Now, another way I might do it is after the retrap, you see I can use it here to trap his arm. And that's like moving backwards as it does in the form. So slowly what I did was I hit, then I retrapped and hit, and then you can see that I just used wu sao moving backwards almost exactly as it is in the form to trap, and then that opened him up for the shot. All right, another way to use that wu sao wrap, moving backwards, is from the inside. So for example, after the jab, if I leaked in underneath with the uppercut, I can use it here to trap the person's arm and go into a neck grab, or whatever else I wanted to do. But importantly is that I came in here, leaked underneath, then I trap his arm, moving backwards with wu sao against my body, and go for whatever shot I want to do. Now another way I can use that wu sao wrap is against the kick. So when Gavin goes to side kick me in the body, now what I did here was stop the shot with a downward elbow. Then I used the wu sao wrap to get his foot tied up against my body, pulling up against his ankle. That leaves him open for a lot of other shots. All right, next I'm going to talk about throwing into the fook sao position, and then the open into tan, that short opening. Now that throw and closing of the hand, if you notice, I throw my hand sharply, and then I close 3 fingers and pinch 2 going forward. And that simulates the movement in sticky hands that I just talked about a minute ago, the luk sao or rolling hands. So for example, when I'm in this position here in sticky hands, the high fook, there's the throw. I use that throw to put a little bit of pressure on his arm, but without tensing up. I can keep myself loose, but still pressure the bong sao. Then when we roll down, 3 fingers clip onto his arm and 2 pinch. The reason I do that, I don't want to try to grab with all my fingers because my arm will cramp up and I'll be stiff and I won't be able to keep my elbow in. But for some reason, I guess it has to do with your physiology, it is possible to grab with 3 fingers and leave 2 out, so and still keep your elbow in proper position. So in the rolling hand cycle, what I do is, throw, clip on, throw, clip on, throw, clip on. And when I get to the sticky hands tape, I'm going to talk more about that. All right, next I'm going to talk about pak sao, or slapping hand block, which you notice in the form I keep my fingers open because I'm waiting for hand contact. When I actually apply it, though, I do close my fingers. Now, for example, when we're open, when Gavin gives me the jab, Pak Sao slaps down the center line and sort of sticks onto his arm, pushing down into the center. I'll explain more about the cutting angle when we get to that in the theory tape. Now, from position here, I could use the Tan Sao that I showed earlier to take over for the Pak. So, again, at speed, it was... Now, another way of using the Pak Sao, say, for example, closed position, prior bridge contact or not, if I'm touching arms with him, I'll just use the Pak to trap the arm. So what I'll do is come in and just shoot that punch in. Now, that could have happened either from just touching like this, or if he would have thrown the punch first, and say I use Tan, then there's the Pak. So as the retrap. Then you remember the Hain Sao scoop that we used earlier, there's another Pak Sao application. All right, next I'm going to talk about Pak into Jing Jiang directly. You notice that I don't retract my hand before going into the palm strike. I go right from the Pak Sao motion, use elbow power for the palm heel strike. Now, for example, what that would be is after having stopped the punch with the Pak Sao, go straight into this punch, or palm strike rather. What you don't want to do is you don't want to bring the other hand back because you could be getting hit in between before you could get your shot in. So what you'd rather do is make it quick and go straight in. So at speed, it looks like this. Now, closed, I could do almost the same thing after using Wu Sao to block that first shot. I went in here and then again followed up. So at speed, that would look like this. All right, next I'm going to talk about Gum Jiang. You notice that I flip my hand as I go down, and that's a palm edge strike. Now, for example, when we're open, Gavin gives me the jab. After bong, I can use that to cut down to the body, so I can use it in that way. So all I did here was from bong sao, I grabbed and cut straight down to attack the body. Now I can use it as what's called the leakage attack. Again, if we're open and I throw the jab, if Gavin uses the bong sao, what I can do is leak through the middle into that motion. Now again, what that looked like was jabbing here, and then cut down with the edge of the hand, then I went through. So at speed, that would look like this here. All right, another way I can use that Gum Jiang motion from sticky hands, if I were to have attacked to the body and then trapped that shoulder, I can use that as a neck-breaking strike. So what I did again, slow motion, is I went in, attacked the body, slipped up to trap the shoulder, and stepped in with Gum Jiang, applying counter pressure. All right, next I'm going to talk about Hao Chang Jiang, or rear spade palm. So from position here, I'm showing it sideways so you can see it more clearly. You can see my wrists are chambered, and then I shoot back. Now what this is designed to do is to bring out your front shoulder. So when you pop your arm back like that, it makes your shoulder protrude. So for example, in sticky hands, what I can do is go into, say for example, headbutt. I can then use my shoulder to strike. And you can see I throw my hand back, and that brings the shoulder forward. All right, now another way I would use that is if he just grabbed my wrist, I can use that throwback to pull him into the headbutt and then again into the shoulder. So you see that the further I pull my hand back, the more it pulls him into the shot. Another way I would use that is to break his elbow after he blocks me. For example, if I threw the jab and Gavin used that block and hit here from my Wu Sao position, I can use that to hyperextend the shoulder and even break it. And then again, apply that trap and hit. Now I can also use it as an emergency block to stop a shot when I'm totally trapped up. For example, if Gavin went for the double Pak, what I did there was use my shoulder to bounce him off. So slowly, when I felt my hands trapped up and I had no other choice, I kind of bring my shoulder up and roll his punch off to the side. So you can use your shoulder in that way. It's not the best block in the world to use. You don't really want to always hit like that, but it's one of the ways that you can use it. All right, now another way I can use this is to block a round kick that's coming sort of from an angle from the rear. So when Gavin goes to round kick me to the back, I can use that Hao Chang Jiang motion to block backwards against the shin. Slowly, I threw it back, and you can see that in relation to my own body, it's similar to the way it is in the form. All right, next I'm going to talk about Chin Gum Sao, or front pinning hand, which is again not closed in the form, left open, waiting for hand contact. Now, from a position when I'm open with Gavin, if he were to throw a low punch at the body, I would use the Gum Sao to stop that downward. So slowly, what I did was just slap down and stick onto his arm. Now I can use it against the uppercut. Say for example, he tried to get my hands up with the high shot and then went for the uppercut. There again would be an application for Gum Sao. So what I did here was block and then went straight down to stop the uppercut. I could use that same type of a block against that rear knee shot for the groin, just by dropping my hand down. Again, drop down and stop that knee. Now, against a powerful kick to the groin, you might have to use footwork, but you could also stop it with the gum saw motion. So, stepping back as you block. All right, another application for gum saw is as what I call a retrap. So, for example, after having stopped the jab here, I use my gum saw here to what I call retrap or take over the trap, pressing his arm down so that I can hit from the safety zone. And again, retrap, just to make sure he's not hitting me. See, in other words, if I did tan here and then I didn't bother retrapping and I just went for the shot, first of all, his arm could block me, or even if I got through, I could be getting hit. So what I prefer to do is, after having blocked something, I like to keep it tracked, keep it under control. Now, another way I might want to use this is what I call plant trap hit. After I kick, say for example we're, okay, open. If I came in and I threw a shot down to Gavin's knee, I might use my descending momentum here in a plant trap hit with gum saw. Now I'll talk more about that in the Chum Q form explanations. All right, in sticky hands I can use gum saw as what I call a conversion press. So from the tan, what I did was just knit his hands, weave his hands into a trapped position, and then retrapped again using the gum saw. Now, another way I might use it as a conversion press is after a successful strike, when he goes to hit me, I can convert and then again retrap. Those are all gum saw applications. So again, in slow motion, what I did was I hit him, and then I used jeep saw, which I'll talk more about at the Chum Q level. But after having used this, I just convert to what's called gum da, or gum saw and hit. Now, another thing Chun gum saw does is it hides the side shoulder principle, because it, like this protruded my front shoulder, this makes my side shoulder protrude. Now, I would use that, for example, against a grab, a cross grab in this situation. I can go into that position to bounce it back. So in other words, what I did was, all I did was step into the same position I was in Sil Lim Tao. If Gavin disappeared, it would look just like the position from the form. Now I can use it in sticky hands as well. In the same way, what I'll do is bounce him into a shot, use my shoulder, and then pull him right back in. Now what I did here was just leap through the top, went into that position, straight out of the form, and then as he bounced back, I was waiting for him. All right, next I want to talk about lan, fun, lan. So you see that from position, I go left over right, chop out, and I come back right over left. So why do you start out one way, chop, and come back the other? What you have to do is turn one of the hands over on the way back to unlock the secret technique. It's not really a secret, but it's hidden. Now, for example, when Gavin goes to punch me, after having used bong saw, I use lop, chop, loppin, fun saw, and then retrap and hit. That movement comes directly out of the form. As you can see from bong, what I'm doing is going here, one hand over the top, and then that hand that chopped out came back underneath. So you can see the movement's hidden there. In other words, the one hand that was on top, and then it came back underneath. So that's how it works. It's kind of a hidden application. Now another way to use the movement of lan and then right into the double chop, straight out of the form, if he were to grab my lapels, try to hold me in that way, what I could do is pull him into a headbutt. Now what I did here was grab over the top and that pulled him down so I could hit him with my head. Then I go in with the chop, keeping the trap, chop again, retrap and punch. And that's straight out of the form. So at speed that looks like this. All right, another way I can use lan saw is as a layover trap. So for example, after hack da and then grab chop, I could lay across both arms. So again, right out of the form, chop into lan. See what I did was, from position here, let's say chop here, grab, chop, and then back down into lan while that one hit. So that comes straight out of the form as well. Now finally, another way I like to use the lan saw is to choke as a trap around the neck, or to throw. Say for example we were open and Gavin gave me the punch. After bong and hitting here, I might attack him in a number of ways here and then go into a choke, which you can see I'm trapping his shoulder and going against him, and then choking here with lan saw. It would be easy to just take and throw him down from that position. All right, next I'm going to talk about the chop down into double jam saw. Now that movement is again not finished. If I was really using it, I'd be twisting it, but I don't want to do it in the air. I want to wait for hand contact before I finish the movement because it burns forward and bounces him inwards. So from open, when Gavin gives the jab, I use jam saw right down the center line. You can see that when I make contact with him, it touches this way. And then only on contact does it twist and move forward. So for example, I might, after the jab, go into the chop here. So what I did was block, grab, chop, and then finished it up. Now, another way I might use, or another follow-up against the 1-2, for example, after having used this, I could go into my straight punch exclusion. In other words, after having used the jam here, I just bounced his punch out with my own punch and then retrapped and punched again. All right, next I'm going to talk about the quick flip into the double tan from the jam set. This hides a principle known as yat fuk yi, or one hand takes care of two, which I'll talk more about in the principles tapes. Now, from position, for example, if Gavin threw me the first shot and I did use jam, and another one came, I could go straight into the tan, just out of the form. So you see, once again, it was jam, tan. And that would be an example of yat fuk yi, or one hand taking care of two, because the first hand blocked and the same hand blocked again. It doesn't have to be jam to tan. It could have been, for example, pak to tan, or it could have been bong to grab, or it could have been fuk to biu. There's a lot of different ways you could go. It doesn't have to be those exact combinations. All right, next I'm going to explain about jut, biu, and follow with a third jut. So those three movements in sequence. Now, it doesn't have to be done in double like it is in the form. You could mix and match the hands as you see fit. So for example, against a single jab, I could go jut, biu, jut. And what my hand did was jut, biu, jut. Now I might do something else with the other hand. I might go jut here and then check, and then retrap and hit again. But the idea is there. Now, if, for example, he threw a 1-2, I could go jut, biu, jut. And there again, my hand went jut, biu, and then the jut was, in this case, pulling his hand back into another shot. Or in a delayed action deal, for example, if I had hit him and then he tried to hit again. So in this case, I went and I poked, but then that shot was coming, so I had to intercept it on its way in. So there's a few different ways I might use that combination. All right, now I want to talk more about just the biu sao by itself as a defense. So for example, when we're closed against the jab, I can use biu sao to stop that jab. That's where you would not want to use a cross bong sao. In other words, Wing Chun, we do not use bong sao against the cross arm because it has a tendency to collapse. So in a situation where you would have used cross bong, use biu sao instead, it deflects him, it sends him out more. And from there, I just followed up with a pull punch. Now similar, if we were open and he gave me the 1-2, I might bong and then shoot biu because my bong is spent. And again, I could not use the cross bong in that position. So what I did was went bong here, shoot the biu sao, then pull and strike. Now another way I might use biu sao is as an attack in sticky hands. So for example, from the chi sao, if I wanted to shoot, step up here, what I did was from the low fuk sao position, shot biu to exclude his arm outwards, stepped up with the punch, and then I just finished him up here. All right, next I want to talk about the double seongkyun, or double punch. So what I'm going to do here, the double punch in a situation where we're open could be used after bong, tanda. I could go right into a double punch there, and I've got his arm clamped against my body with that second punch. So what I did was block that first one. Second one was here. Then I just shot in 1, 2. Now, if I wanted to, I could actually use it from sticky hands by scooping and going into the double punch. So you can see that what I did was scooped his hand down, then scooped it in, trapped, and again here at 2 different levels. So it's difficult to block punches that are coming at 2 different levels at the same time. Okay, next I'm going to talk about hang sao, or the long bridge forearm block. It's called long bridge because the bridge is the forearm in Wing Chun. And when you execute with your arm fully locked out, it's like having a long forearm. That's why it's called long bridge. Now there's a couple of ways to use hang sao. One of the more common applications is once I've hit and Gavin tries to hit my body, I shoot my hand straight down into the hang sao. In other words, here, I don't want to bring my hand in first and try to block. It's too late. So from position, I shoot it straight down. That's why in the form, it goes straight down without bending. Now another way I might use it is what's called guat sao, or wiping, clearing hand. For example, if Gavin had thrown the jab and I used kyun-soo-kyun, I can hang sao, sweep it open like that. So again, what I did was blocked it inwards, and then I needed just to get it out of my way so I wouldn't run into it. So I just scooped it out of the way to clear the way. Then you could follow up with a number of other shots. Now another way I can use hang sao as a guat sao is when I'm being shoved continuously. Now like a continuous push. As he's pushing me, his weight is coming into me. So what I want to do is cut up through and then use the hang sao to sweep him off to the side. That means he's going to fall into this punch. So you can use his weight against him. Another way I might want to use this, say for example in sticky hands, if I were going to do the outside jut and chop. If Gavin back braces and uses what's called fox out to defend, I can use hang sao again to sweep that hand out of my way. All right, another way to use hang sao from sticky hands is just to trap him up by clearing the line across, tying the hands. Follow up with gung da. All right, next I'm going into what's called ding sao. I call it J hand because the character ding in Chinese looks just like a capital J in English. And what you're doing is snapping your wrist up, long bridge, without any elbow. So you're learning to use the hand and fingers and shoulder in place of the elbow as a source of power. Now, you don't usually use it just like it is, although I'll show you how you could use it exactly first. For example, against a low-high shot, after gum, I could use ding sao there to block. It could also be used as a hit, so you can use that to strike, like the crane. But normally I don't like so much to block with my wrist up like that. But it does develop a raising power, getting as much as you can out of your hand. Personally, I'd prefer to use what's called fox sao in that situation. A little bit less risk of hurting your wrist. But the raising power that you get from snapping your fingers here is teaching you how to raise without the elbow. So in certain situations, say for the low punch, here, if I want to just raise up to my strike, that's called taikun, raising punch. And that raising punch got its power from the closure of the hand, the snapping of the wrist, and the shoulder, because there wasn't much elbow behind it. It had to just shoot straight up from there. All right, next I'm going to talk about kao sao, or finger hooking hand. Now what you want to try to do is come up to position here and then whip the fingers over near your ear with a semicircular motion. Now what this is what's called a catch-up trap. It's when your hand is extended and you have to move it backwards for whatever reason. And one of the ways I might use it, say for example, after having done the tak da, I can use kao sao here to re-trap the hand that trapped me. See, the first time I was able to move forward with pak, but now my hand to trap him has to move backwards. And that's where kao sao comes in. Another situation where I might come in, let's say we were open, and for example the punch came here, and if I went there and he blocked me, well, once I've run, I'm in a little danger of that hand hitting me. So that's where I would re-trap with the kao sao. So again, moving backwards. As another catch-up application, if I had successfully hit him and then he tried to hit me, well, I had to use kao sao there to catch up with his hand and then again to re-trap that hand. So what I did was, came in, hit, then I had to catch up with that hand, so I had to move backwards to catch it. And then now I wanted to hit him again, so I hit, and again I used kao sao to re-trap. All right, another way of using kao sao from sticky hands is to pull him to full extension so you can set up for a number of breaks or other movements. So what I did in this situation was from the tan sao, I ran underneath, and then I moved in with a punch, and I pulled his hand kind of over my shoulder. That set him up with a full extension for an arm break, which I then hooked him out, and then re-trapped and hit. Now, I wouldn't want to headbutt him because it might hurt him. All right, next I'm going to talk about ngoi jet sao, outside jerking hand into the changjiang, spade palm attack. So one of the ways that I use this, again, is as a catch-up movement when my hand is already fully extended. So, for example, if the jab came and I had used my ball and went in here and Gavin blocked it and went to punch me, that's where I might use that exact motion. So you can see, after having blocked here, that one's coming in, so I sort of sweep it off to one side, and you can see it's all chambered up and ready to go for that shot. Now you could use it just against a 1-2 open. For example, after jam, here, I could have used it the same way. Because what I did was blocked and then came back and followed that one on its way back. In other words, I do not use ngoi jet out of thin air. If that punch was just coming, I wouldn't do that, because I'd have to waste time extending and then coming back. I would only use it if that first one came, extending my front hand, drawing it back, and that sucks him into the shot. Now in sticky hands, I can use ngoi jet to pull a guy in, especially if he's got a really sort of overly pulling down fuksa. So what I can do is take advantage of that by pulling him forward with my jet, opening him with the chop, and then again, there's that unloading of the hand attacking. So it looked like this. All right, next I'm going to talk about opening my hand after doing the spade palm attack and then closing. What that does is it simulates what's called pan geng sao, or neck trapping hand. Now what happens a lot of times with pan geng sao, let's say for example we're closed. If Gavin gave me some sort of shot and I had done whatever movement to block and then hit to the throat, what they're telling you to do is extend your arm and then trap. That pulls him into different shots. So again, what I did in this case was went here, here, and then there, pulling him in. That magnifies the blow because he can't move anywhere, plus you're pulling him into it. Plus you can't miss hitting your own hand. So in a way, even if you can't see, you can feel where to hit. Now, it doesn't have to be a punch. The same technique, I could have gone in here and gone with the elbow shot. Or the same technique, I could have come in here and I could have gone in with whatever, headbutt. So there's different ways that you could use that. All right, next I'm going to talk about the retraction of one hand and the extension of the other in time. This hides what I call the stupid trap, because it's taking advantage of someone's stupidity. If they're too stupid to let you go, you can take advantage of them in a certain way. Now, one of the ways I would use what I call stupid trap is, for example, if Gavin had punched here and I stopped it with the shot in this way, what I can do is take advantage of the fact that he's holding onto my hand. See, when he pulls and punches, once I blocked it and I find that I can't get loose, right, what I do is just apply the trap and then hit him. I could use a similar stupid trap. For example, if he had done pock punch against me and I stopped it here, after having hit him, if he still won't let go, there again, I can re-trap this way. So what I did was, I got trapped, I hit, and when I did want to re-trap and hit again, I couldn't get loose. So that tells me to here while retracting and bang again. All right, another way to use that same stupid trap is from Chisa. When Gavin goes to pull punch after here, once again, I can apply the trap. See? What happened was he pulled and punched. I used my kwansa, trapped him into position, and went in. All right, next I'm going to talk about tan into gan. Now you're going to see that I go from tan position here. I snap my hand in and go near the opposite chest, chambering, and then clearing. Now that's for power, but it's also to clear the line. You don't want to just chop straight down. See, for example, when we're closed, if that high shot comes, say I did tanda, what I want to do is snap in and clear the whole line so that I can catch that second shot with the same hand. See, so that's why I would want to use two. In other words, if I did not make that round motion, if I went straight down, I might miss that punch and get hit. So instead, what I want to do is clear the line, and that helps me go in with that second shot. Now, another way that I might use that same motion is using the gangsao as a hit. So say, for example, that shot came at me and I had used tanda. I could use that gangsao to strike instead of using it as a block. So it's the same idea, having blocked here, clear and get the power, and then unload it as a strike. Another way I might use tan to gan would be use the tan to block a high shot, and then a kick could be stopped by the gangsao. So again, it would be high, low, and slowly, high, low. All right, next I'm going to talk about gan, back up to tan. And you can see that I smack my body with my elbow on the way up. And that simulates a few different things. I'll show you some of them now. But just talking about gangsao coming up to tan, there's a couple of ways I could use it. One would be if I had blocked the shot here and then come up with tan to stop that punch. So that first kick came and I blocked it. Then tan stopped that second shot. Now, if that second shot would have been a hook off the lead hand, I could have snapped up into tan pak here. So again, it would look like block and then snap up into the tan in that way. Now I can also use that tan sao as a hit. So after having blocked a low shot here, I can use tan sao as an iron palm strike. And you can see that it has whip power to it. So what I do is block and then hit with the tan sao. Now I could also use tan sao to stop a round kick. For example, gang to tan could be used when the round kick was coming at my ribs. I could block with the gang and then flip up to tan to trap his leg. So at speed it would look like this. Once again, slowly, block and flip up to tan. From there you could kick out the base leg, knee, strike, throw. There's all kinds of different ways you could go. All right, another reason why I sort of smack my body with the elbow is to simulate the opponent's punches and picking those punches off with the inward elbow. So for example, body shots. What I did here was use my elbow. I stopped it with just a small batting inward motion of the elbow. Now, smacking your body can also simulate the opponent's arm in a clamping trap. For example, against the jab, after having moved in there with tanda, I can clamp the opponent's arm against the body and then run him into the shot. So you can see, anytime that I get his arm fully extended there, I can clamp into it, pull him forward, and hyperextend the elbow, then run him into the shot. All right, another way I might use that scooping upward of my elbow is from sticky hands. If Gavin tries to hit low to the body, once I've used ganga here, I can go into a trap on the arm. So again, what that looked like slowly, as he attacked, I responded with ganga. Then my hand went up to tan, and that started setting up for the trap that pulled him into the knee shot. All right, next I'm going to talk about Yin Sao into Chang Dai Jian. So circling hand into the low spade palm. Now, what this is also nicknamed is Yin Guat Sao, which is circling sweep. And that's because of the way it's used. Now, some of the ways that I would use it, say for example when the jab comes after jump, I can use Yin Sao to scoop open and open the shot. So again, that looks like this here. Now I could use it against that shot there by the same idea. So what I did was hook it and then moved in with the shot. Now closed, if that punch came after Tanda, I can circle up underneath and go into this shot the same way. So it looks like that there. I can also use it as a defensive motion. When he gets the back of my neck and tries to knee, I can use a double version of that to stop it right at its source. So the double Chang Dai Jian would be used here. Now in sticky hands, I can also use that motion from the inside time position to scoop them open. So what I did here was just Yin, hit, and that one is already loaded for the next shot that's going to come in that way. All right, next I'm going to talk about Bong to Tan. And you see that I drill forward and then drop down to the Tan. So the time I normally use this combination is against the 1-2. Bong Sao stops the first shot. Now you can see it sort of bounces the hand a little bit. So if he throws me a couple of repeated shots, you can see how it bounces inward and forward. The way I can tell if my Bong Sao is correct is to close one eye. My wrist should block Gavin's throat from my line of vision. In other words, if I can't see his throat when I close one eye, it means he can't hit me. But if I can see his throat, which I can now, that means I can be hit. So that's how you know how high to put Bong Sao up. Now as I was saying, usually you would use it with Tan Sao as a follow-up against the 1-2. So it would be here, 1, 2. So slowly what I did was Bong the first shot, flip to Tan, dropping that second one down and clearing the way for the punch. Now if we were closed, I might reverse that. Tan the first and then Bong that second shot, follow up. So all I did was block that first shot, flip up to Bong, and then follow up. Or if we were open against that first jab, I could just stop it with Bong and then follow up with what's called lap sao. Here, grab and chop, retrap. It doesn't have to be a chop. I could go here into the punch, or I could go here into the hammer fist. There's a number of ways to go. Even at real close distance, I could go here into the elbow. All right, another way I would use Bong to Tan would be to turn the tables on a grab. If I were grabbed and my arm was in control this way, what I could do is just turn the tables by turning to Tan. That puts his arm into an awkward alignment, so it could be attacked, or the body leaves the body open. So that's one of the ways I might use it. Another way would be if, for example, in sticky hands or any other combat situation, I had one hand under control, but was forced to use Bong to stop the other one. Then I might want to use Tan to open him up so that I could go in with other attacks to the center. See, what I would not want to do is I would not want to stop this shot here and then open up with Tan, because I'd just be doing what I call opening a can of worms. So that wouldn't do me any good. I don't want to get on the inside in a situation like that. But if I have this hand under control, say I've gone here, and then I was forced to Bong Sao here, now it's okay to open him up, see? That's not a problem. Now I can also use Bong Sao after having been fully extended, sort of as a backward moving version. In other words, if we were closed and that first shot came and I used do, when the second one came, I could drop back into the Bong position this way. So in other words, I collapsed backwards. That leaves him set up for different shots that I could follow up with. Now in Chi Sao, the rolling hands, remember I have been talking about it all along. Well, there's the Bong and the Tan from Chi Sao. That up in Bong and flip down to Tan. Exactly as it is in Sil Lim Tao. So now you have all the pieces for rolling hands. You have the Bong flipping down to Tan just as it does in the form. And then you have, on the other hand, you've got the clip-on and the throw from the Fuchs out earlier in the form. So this entire cycle is all cleverly hidden somewhere within the form. All right, next I'm going to talk about Pao Jian, or lifting palm, which you can see in the form forces me to raise my body. In other words, once I've dropped the weight here, I've been sunken throughout the whole form. My weight's been down. Now this is forcing me to use my spine, lifting behind the shot, creating raising body power. Now Pao Sao itself can be used in a number of ways, but the reason it's done high in the form is to cause your body to raise. When you use it to attack, you would not use it at that level, because if I tried to attack with this hand at that level, I'd probably break my fingers. So it's used on the lower line. Say for example we're closed, and or rather closed this way. If Gavin threw me the shot and I had blocked it here, what I would do is use power jam as a low palm strike. See, there my palm heel would be exposed to the hit. See, I wouldn't want to use it high because I could hurt my fingers. And it's here, and then catch that arm. Now another way to use that is to keep that. So after having hit him with the Jeep Sao, you can keep that and use Pao Sao as an underarm grab. That sets him up for a number of other shots. Pao Sao is also half of what's called Lai Sao, or double grab, pulling hand. Now from an open position, after having used Bong, I could go here with what's called Lai Sao, and over an under grab, pulls him into the kick. Then you could follow up in different ways. See? But basically what I did was here, grab and use Pao Sao underneath as half of an over-under grab. That again pulled him into the kick. All right, next I'm going to talk about Tuit Sao, or freeing hand. Now you notice in the form, I start out here and both my hands twist so that I'm pulse to pulse at the bottom. And then again, both hands twist and I'm pulse to pulse at the bottom. But on the third one, the bottom hand does not twist, only the top one twists. That clears the way for the punch. Now the reason for that is simple. It's in Wing Chun, we don't necessarily want to escape from a block, just escape. I mean, if you want to just get away from a grab, rather, if you want to just get away from a grab, all you have to do is go against the thumb, because that's the weakest point. Grab as tight as you can. All you have to do is kind of use Kao Sao to get away from a grab. I mean, you just pull right against the joint and it slips right out. So it's not that it's so important to be able to get out of a grab, but you want to get something back for your effort. So the reason for the twist of the hand is to turn and expose the thumb to an attack. So if the guy doesn't want to let go, not only are you going to free your hand, but you're also going to attack his thumb while doing so. So, for example, I might do this, clear my hand, and then punch, just as I do in the form. So you say, well, what about in a cross grab situation? Well, the last of the three Tuit Sao does not twist on the bottom. The reason being, I don't want to twist and expose the strongest part of the grab. So in a cross grab situation, you don't need to twist. You just scrape straight down to attack the thumb, and then again, you're clear for the strike. Now, Tuit Sao also uses your own arm to simulate someone else's arm. That rubbing against your own arm can also simulate rubbing the opponent's arm. For example, normally, in a normal situation, if this jab had come and I'd used jam, I'd want to just go straight into the chop there and let this hand take over the trap. In other words, I would not want to rub along his arm if I had this hand available to trap. I mean, why would I want to slow my chop down and let him know I'm coming? Because that's what he'd see. He'd feel the thing coming down his arm. So what you really don't want to do is just rub his arm in a situation like this. But there is a situation that does call for that. If, for example, Gavin had done Pak Punch, now from this position I've used Jam Sao, I don't have my other hand available to take over the trap. It's tied up. So in this situation, I do want to rub for a couple of reasons. One is so I can find the target. Two is to make sure that that arm is checked, because if I raise off of it, I might get countered myself. So this checks his arm as it goes in. So in this situation, you do want to use that rubbing of the arm, and that comes from the Tuit Sao motion. All right, next I'm going to talk about what's called Lin Wan Kui, 3 punches in a row. Now you notice that I go here and I chamber my hand just like it was at the beginning of the form. Then I punch 1, 2, and the third one pulls back. But each time as I punch, the other hand is chambered near the elbow. In other words, I don't pull my hand all the way back to the side. Now what they're telling you is that when you punched in the first application, you pulled all the way back. And that simulated pulling someone's hand into the punch. But in this case, you're chambering near the elbow. What they're telling you is that in a situation where you're not grabbing, you should not pull your hand back to your hip. You only pull back far enough to chamber. You see, the other one, you were simulating pulling someone's hand in, so it was safe to have your hand pulled back that far. But if you don't have a hold of something, you don't want to pull your hand back so far. Now, an example of a situation like that, say for example the first punch came and I blocked it one way, and the second punch came, I blocked it another way. Now I don't have a grab here, but I might just go 1, 2, 3. In this situation, because I didn't grab, see, I don't want to go in and go 1, 2, 3. That'd be wasting my time and energy. Now the time when you wouldn't grab something would be usually if you had made contact with the first punch. In other words, if I had blocked this first one, blocked the second one, went bam, and I felt that hit him, I'd just go boom, boom, and just keep hitting, rather than try and go for any traps. I could just mow them down with straight punches. All right, next I'm going to talk about the Sao Sik motion, or closing stance. Now, even within that closure of the stance, there's an application in Wing Chun. What it does is introduce the concept of footwork in conjunction with the hand. Because you notice that my hand and foot have to move together. So what I could do here, if Gavin had grabbed me, what I could do is use that exact motion of the Sao Sik, which is my arm was extended, and then I moved my foot. Now at the same time, as I'm twisting my hand to pull him into a bad alignment, I'm also moving my foot to get me closer to him. So you can see that that introduces the concept of footwork, and there's tons of different types of footwork that we use in Wing Chun, but the little idea for the footwork is right there in the Sao Sik closing stance. Now that concludes the explanations of part 1 of this tape series, which is the Sil Lim Tao form. We're going to go on now and explain the Chum Kyu and Byuji forms as well.